if you owe tons of money. Tell me about that.
Well, first of all, that should be very, very, very suspect. Um, I've been reading some cases, some suits that have been brought against various of the big national television advertised tax firms. And in one instance, fewer than 10% of the people who applied for offers in compromise were granted those offers by the IRS. If they had applied for them personally, 20% of them would have been granted. Another alarming statistic that
Now,
I
what
read
is that?
was
What does that mean? In other words, that if you apply yourself, you have a 2-to-1 chance. You have 100% better odds of getting a compromise than if you have some law firm do it for you.
well, if you have one of the national tax firms do
Right.
it for you.
Why is that?
Uh, I don't think, in my experience, when I get the papers in that I have seen uh, when an offer in compromise has failed through one of the national
Uh-huh.
tax firms, always find that the papers are inadequately filled out, wrong, contain information of probably another client, or information that is invented. So improper application is one of the reasons. The only a very few people qualify for an offer and compromise to begin with, and so uh, these national tax firms tend to sell the offer and compromise as something that they can achieve when very few people actually qualify for it to begin with.
I'm
Uh,
assuming that people have to pay up front.
no, on an offer you don't have to pay up front, George.
No, no, no,
You do
no.
have.
To these law firms.
Oh, yes, they have to pay up front substantial amounts.
How much? Do you
Uh,
know how much?
uh, what I have heard is $4,000 to $6,000, which is a very, very large amount, of course. And sometimes the people make monthly payment plans with the national tax firm, and I don't want to call them law firms because they really aren't law firms. They're tax firms. They may have attorneys on staff, but perhaps they don't. Uh, Lawyers have a different ethical standard than the national tax firms. We are supervised by our bar associations and
Mm-hmm.
our disciplinary committees, whereas these national tax firms have no oversight at all. So it's a very, very different kind of an organization. That's basically a sales organization, not really a service delivery organization such as a law firm is.
Okay, so if you owe money to the IRS, instead of going to one of these national marketing firms or whatever you want to call them,
That's
you
a
know,
good thing.
especially this guy with this beard that I won't trust him with a nickel, much less my billfold. What should you do
Well,
if you owe a lot of money, and a lot of
if you
money is in the eye of the beholder? What do you do?
okay, if the person owes less than $20,000 and they feel
There's
they
that
have,
$20,000 threshold again.
yeah, it is. And if they feel that they have enough communication skills to
Right.
handle this with the IRS to work out a payment plan, then they should do that. There's three basic handlings for a tax debt. One is a currently not collectible status. We achieve these here in this office pretty frequently just because of the economic times, where the IRS declares that the person does not have either the assets or the income to pay for a tax bill that's currently due. The second one is a payment plan, where the person does have income to pay.
Hmm.
And it may be adequate to pay it off quickly or not so quickly, but that it can usually be handled by the taxpayer themselves. And then the
Is there a
offer,
huge interest and penalty involved in that?
yes, there always is interest and penalty involved in it, and nobody can,
No free lunch, huh? No.
there is no free lunch. Sometimes you can get penalties waived. It used to be rather commonplace to be able to do so. It's really rather rare now for penalties to be waived. If you can get the penalties waived, then the interest is reduced somewhat. Interest can never be waived. So anybody that promises that is misrepresenting or doesn't, or just plain doesn't know.
Okay, now is there a third one? I interrupted
Well, and
you.
then the third one is the offer and compromise. And I have done, I have achieved one offer and compromise in the last 10 years. And the facts in that case were my client had not paid his taxes for some 10 years, finally filed his tax returns. He was going into a religious organization.
I bet, yeah.
And
Getting ready for prison, yeah.
yeah, and his father offered to pay $25,000 if his taxes would be settled. The IRS accepted that.
Yeah.
And he owed about $170,000. But those circumstances are very unusual, George. Very unusual.
Okay.
So offers of compromise are hard to achieve if you have any assets at all.
Okay. So we stay away from those people that advertise on TV.
Yeah, and
yeah.
and another alarming thing that I read in some of the one of the lawsuits, was that 70% of the people who commenced the representation with the national tax firm were either discharged or fired the tax firm before anything was achieved.
And then lost their money.
And then they lost their money.
Well, so, who's that? Ronnie Deutsch or whatever her name is out of California?
I can't speak to that, George. The state of California alleged that such a thing had occurred, but I don't have any personal information to that.
Oh boy, I can't even get you. I can't even get you into trouble. I'm working on it. I'm working on it, Martha. I got Kevin into, John into a little bit of trouble, but I'm working on it here. Since the police chief doesn't have your back right now, you know.
Yeah, well. But I wanted to tell people too that the settlement of one of the more complex tax issues, especially something like payroll taxes, for which there is really no compromise at all, can take a very long time for the whole matter to resolve. The resolution of a tax issue that is fairly complex, perhaps more than $20,000 beyond the ability of the client to pay, can take up to 2 years.
Okay.
So that's kind of normal.
Martha, any chance that we could get you back next week or the week after, and let's talk about what happens if you get that dreaded letter from the IRS that says they're going to audit you?
I'd just love to, George.
Good. Martha, you are such a sport, and now that you've got this Skype video down pat, you look great. Have a great week. Take care.
Thank you very much, George.
Thank you.
Bye.
And next week, we're going to start a series talking about Connecticut-grown foods. It's going to we're gonna start eating well and getting in shape. I've lost 8 pounds of the 25 pounds I committed to this year, and we're gonna have our CT food blogger on next week. So stay tuned.
Budwitz and Meyer